We'll go ahead and get started this morning. My name is Shauli Katana, and I'm the Director of Member Experience and Programs here at the Maryland State Bar Association. We are really thankful to have all of you joining us this morning from the Administrative Law section. We have been hosting these coffee talks since COVID began in March and have reached out to over a dozen sections, and nearly 300 attorneys have joined us. So we're really happy to have this ability to connect with your section. And we are recording this session. It's just to share with other section members, but I just wanted to inform everyone of that at the start. Angela Monroe is helping me here to monitor the chat and this discussion. So if we are in the middle, or you have a thought you'd like to just share with the group, I encourage everybody to unmute and speak up, as that's really the purpose of this call. But you can also post in the chat box that's in the upper right-hand corner at any time, and we'll be monitoring that and incorporating those questions and comments into the discussion. And the structure of these is a lot more informal than what you've been seeing in some of our other content and presentations. And it is really just a way to get the section members together, to give a little bit of update about what we've been doing here at the MSBA and what we have planned to support you in the coming weeks and months as the crisis continues. And then we will hear from our section chair and hear from all of you about what you've been up to and what you're thinking as courts are starting to reopen. So I'll just click over now to a presentation I have, and just wanted to share what we've been up to here at MSBA. So since the COVID crisis began, we've been really thankful at the thousands of attorneys that have joined us. And whether that's been through a webinar, a town hall, through virtual section meetings, through coffee talks, it's been really nice to stay engaged with everyone in the midst of all of this. And we have worked hard to take all of the concerns and questions that you all have shared with us, and we're very thankful for you all reaching out to us. And we've been working with important Maryland leaders like the federal and Maryland judiciary, the governor's office, to obtain information, obtain clarification, ask for details and provide commentary and what might be helpful for the next order that's coming out. And as soon as we've shared that and received information from them, we've communicated that out to the profession. We've also engaged in weekly calls with several of the largest firms here in Maryland, and we continue to have those calls. And that's been helpful to talk about how to survive throughout this crisis. And that's also helped us in our communications to the broader community here. We've also been working with the Maryland Chamber of Commerce, and I will turn now to our Legislative Director, Richard Montgomery, who's on the call to talk a bit more about those efforts.
Good morning, Shauli. Thank you. And good morning, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. My name is Richard Montgomery, and I serve as Legislative Director for the MSBA. Shauli mentioned a number of the external players that we've been working with. First and foremost, in the legislative arena, so obviously there's a COVID-19 legislative work group that's been very active since the General Assembly, actually before they adjourned, but they've been active on a weekly basis. We just had a meeting, briefing by the judiciary before the Senate Judicial Proceedings Committee a little over a week ago. And that was beneficial to them and actually to the presenters as well about what the belief is as to what the courts may look like once the courts do reopen. But Shauli also mentioned work with the Governor's Office of Legal Counsel. There have been a number of executive orders that the governor has issued since the COVID-19 crisis came upon us. And the MSBA has been strongly active with a couple of those. One was the remote notarization executive order, which basically sort of is a light version of a bill that was passed during the 2019 session, which unfortunately had a delayed effective date of October 1st, 2020. So given the growing need for remote interactions and transactions of all sorts of types within the legal community, the governor's order had the effect of essentially speeding up the effective date of sort of a stripped down version of the bill. There was also an executive order dealing with remote witnessing, which had a slightly different legislative history in that there had been a bill that actually we had sort of supported a bill to prohibit remote witnessing back in 2019 because we thought that there were some concerns that needed to be addressed before that was ready to go. But at that time, nobody was actually envisioning a global pandemic. So the governor's office issued an executive order to provide for remote witnessing, principally of estate planning documents during the emergency. The estates and trust section is currently, well, actually, they've already prepared emergency legislation to provide for permanent remote witnessing. That brings us to the issue of the possibility of a special session. As many of you are probably aware, the General Assembly adjourned early. I think it was after 71 days or so, with the belief at the time that they would possibly reconvene for a special session toward the end of May. It appears now that that's not going to happen, although a special session could happen at some point prior to the next regular session in January, but that at this point is still somewhat up in the air. We've also been active in the Maryland Chamber of Commerce COVID-19 work group, which is focused largely on small business issues in Maryland. As you may know, many of our members, a large chunk of our membership, is made up of solo and small firm practitioners. And the hurdles that they face brought about by the pandemic are truly crushing in many cases. So we've been trying to be an active member in that group to try to provide information to membership on possible avenues of aid, be it the PPP program or the EIDL program, both of which have been operating or attempting to operate at sort of a breakneck pace. And it's somewhat overwhelming because there's just so much information out there. And the MSBA has been trying to operate as sort of a clearinghouse for the membership, both with the chamber, with the legislature, and with the governor's office. So that's just a little bit of what we've been doing on the advocacy front. And as Shelley may have mentioned, there is a chat box function. So if you have any questions, please feel free to go ahead and type those in, and we can either come back to it in this open forum, or I can answer you within the chat function. Thanks, Shelley.
Thanks, Richard. We've been providing a lot of information since the crisis began in March. And on March 13th, we launched our COVID website, which we've been updating with MSBA resources, updates from the courts. And as Richard mentioned, to support the firms, we've had a lot of business news on there. We have information about upcoming webinars and links to on-demand webinars for what we've already produced. We also have wellness resources and links to government and health sites as well. We've been putting together webinars from the start, and we're really thankful to all of the section members and the individuals who've reached out to us and have been very engaged in putting together incredibly novel content because everyone is facing something new in their practice. And we made a decision to make sure that this information was available free of charge to anybody that needs to access it during this time. And we've had a lot of really good information. We started off looking at remote work options and technology issues, labor and employment issues regarding COVID in the workplace, and looking also more recently from a public health perspective about what some planning considerations should be in terms of reopening your business and the courts. All of these webinars are available online, and they're also available on our YouTube channel. If you just want audio while you're walking around or getting out of the house, we also have it on SoundCloud and some other platforms. And we've been really excited to see that over 15,000 legal professionals have accessed these webinars over the last 6 weeks, and we're going to continue to leave that information up and available for everyone to see. And as I mentioned, these are the different channels where you can look at our content. And this is just a brief summary. It doesn't even include everything that we've done, but we've really tried to provide a variety of resources to support you whether it's specific to your practice, whether it's looking at insurance issues that have come about because of COVID, custody issues, looking at litigation matters. Really a lot of good information, including tax updates too. And we have our Director of Learning, Andrea Terry, who's been very involved in putting these together. And if you have an idea or you have a contact information that you'd like to make sure is available to this community, please just contact us and we'll make sure to connect you to her. And we will do all of the prep work to help you put this information together. And we also will do a trial run because we are in a new technology setting to make sure that you're comfortable with the presentation style. And then we will monitor any questions during the session, and we'll provide all of the technology that you need to put on the presentation from your home. We also have made a decision to offer our entire on-demand CLE catalog free to the profession since the crisis began, and we plan to offer that until the end of June, so that while everybody is at home, while everybody is facing some new issues, they can spend time and really use these resources because there's just such a need right now. And I've posted the coupon code right here. It's free CLE MSBA. And you can just access it online from msba.org CLE-catalog. And again, it's available to everyone, so we would encourage you to take this information and share it widely. And we've been pleased to see members and non-members, everyone's been taking advantage of this opportunity, which is wonderful to see. We have increased our communication to all of you. So we used to have an e-weekly that was once a week, and we have increased that. So you're now receiving that twice a week, Tuesday, and then Friday is more of a roundup. And we're providing that because there's just so much information. There's a lot of original content from our end as well in terms of updates and things to consider during the crisis. So we do plan to continue that. We have a upcoming bar journal that we usually send and post for print, but this year we have decided to offer that free to the entire legal community, and it's actually already out, so I do need to update this, but we just released it at the end of last week, and it's available on our site, and we encourage you to take a look at the content. A lot of it is looking at COVID and its impact on our community, but there's a lot of really good substantive material in there as well that I think anyone can benefit from looking at. So encourage you to check that out when you have some free time. We continue to produce publications, and we've just released our Esi Book, and that's available for purchase either in print or a digital download. And all of this content is available on our website, and we'd encourage you to look at that when you have some time. We also communicated to all of you that we unfortunately made a decision at the end of April to cancel our 2020 Legal Summit and annual meeting, which has been a wonderful event for our community over the years. And prior to COVID, we had exceeded registrations compared to the year prior, and we're anticipating well over 1,100 people at this event. But we made the difficult decision, but we think it was the right one given what we were hearing from the governor and from health officials. And we have thought about ways that we can rework that content and that sense of community. And so what we plan to do is we had over 80 learning components that were scheduled. So we're planning to put about half of those into a digital series that we'll be rolling out this summer so that you can take advantage of that. And we're also looking at putting together what we're calling Legal Excellence Week at the end of October, probably the last week. It will be more local, not in Ocean City, but probably in Montgomery or Prince George's County. And the hope is for it to be an in-person event at this time. And we'd look at pulling together a lot of our regular fall programs, such as the Solo Summit, some of our advanced learning institutes, family and criminal law updates, Conference of Bar Presidents, and then also add in some of our social and networking events and a few keynote speakers to provide an entire week of programming. And you could choose to attend a session or a day. you could combine and do a package that would allow you maybe 1 or 2 days of events. But we really would like to bring everyone together as long as it's safe. And we hope to exceed 1,000 people throughout the week, hopefully, to come and take a look at what we're providing. As we continue to monitor the situation, if that changes, we'll certainly update you. But we're really looking forward to that. And if you have any ideas for that, please let us know. I'll turn over now to Lisa Kaplan, who's the director of our Lawyer Assistance Program, to give us an update.
Good morning, everyone. I'm glad everyone can be here. We have a lot of information on the health and wellness page. You can access it through the COVID page. There are yoga workouts and home classes and tip sheets on trying to maintain some type of sanity during all of this. And if you're in recovery, there are substance abuse 12-step meetings that are virtual. So there's a lot of information. I would take a few minutes to go and look at that. There are emergency services if you need anything or anything for anyone else. So please look at that information and check it out. It's really important during this time to take care of yourself and make sure you know that those resources are available. Also, the Lawyer Assistance Program is also available. It's free, it's confidential, it's a counseling program for a variety of concerns. It's not just a substance abuse program, and it can help in a lot of different ways. It's available to all lawyers in Maryland, and we have a network of counselors throughout the state. So when we are able to move around again, you can meet with somebody close to your home or close to your work. If you are ever concerned about anyone, you can call me and make a referral. You will not get that person in trouble. They will not know who called, but we will reach out to that person and make sure that they are safe. That is something that's really important now, especially with everybody being very isolated. There's a lot of loneliness. People may not be in contact as much with other people. So please reach out to other lawyers that you know, check in with them. If you're ever concerned, again, please give me a call. We also have financial assistance available for mental health and substance abuse. So if someone is in treatment weekly for counseling, they're having a hard time paying for that, we can help to pay for that. We can help pay to go to a psychiatrist. If you need substance abuse treatment, we can help pay for that as well. All they need to do is reach out to me. It's a really easy process, and we can get that started right away. So if you have any questions, please contact me, and I'm happy to help. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. We've also been working with our partner entity, the Access to Justice Commission, and they've been really busy during this time as well. They've put together a great COVID-19 page that is a great resource for civil legal aid providers and also for the public to understand what's happening in these really important areas such as immigration, domestic violence, landlord-tenant, all of which are seeing completely new issues. And it's also a great place to see where you can find resources for the public. They've also been focusing their efforts now looking at what are some funding concerns, working on their public information campaign, and planning for disaster legal services and volunteer attorneys that can assist as the crisis continues. And as always, we're here for you, and you can always reach us at feedback@msba.org with any questions, comments, suggestions for what we can be doing to support you. And I would like to remind everyone that we've just begun our renewal campaign this month, last week, and we've had just over 1,000 attorneys that have joined us already. And we'd ask you to just take a moment, click through the email, click on our website, and take care of your renewal. It's very easy to do. Our membership team is happy to assist you. We have a new product this season that we're offering. It's a new type of membership, which we hope that you'll take advantage of, and it's the All Access Passport membership. And in addition to covering your regular dues, it also will provide free membership to one MSBA section. It will give you complimentary access to the 2021 annual meeting, as well as the Solo Summit, and then it will give you discounts and free access to other networking and events, and also access to CLEs and on both in person and on demand. So it's a really great value. And for the price that you're paying at the start, it really pays for itself within just a few weeks, a few months, if you are active in these kinds of activities and this kind of content. So please do join us. we are asking you to just take that moment. And with that, I will turn it over to Kathy Grayson, who's on the call, and our chair, to give us an update as well.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much to all of the MSBA staff who's with us this morning. Can you all hear me okay? Perfect. I saw a nod.
Yes.
Just wanted to make sure before I do a monologue on mute, which has actually happened to me during COVID and perhaps many of you. So this is a new world of lawyering for many of us. So thanks everyone for joining. For those that don't know me, I'm Kathy Grayson. I served as the section chair of admin law this year, and wanted to start just by giving a shameless plug for the section, of which many of you are members, I hope. It's a phenomenal group of individuals that are diverse both in practice areas and in experiences. But together, even with the COVID crisis slowing us down this spring, we've had a really productive year. We made it out to University of Maryland Law School to have a presence with the students there. We were able to put on a event this spring down on the Eastern Shore about administrative law, judiciary, and I'm sorry, pardon me. It was a panel discussion on land use and other administrative appeals, and it was very well attended with a really phenomenal speaker lineup. We were in the midst of planning for the annual meeting to do a joint program with the state and local government section that unfortunately will not go off, but hopefully, as we've heard on the call, there'll be some other opportunities to bring that panel together. And that program concerned the Religious Land Use and Institutionalized Persons Act, or RLUIPA, and posed the question: Did Congress intend for religious organizations to have more rights than secular landowners under local land use laws? So, a lot of good stuff in the works. We got a newsletter out, and our phenomenal legislative chair, Bruce Martin, will be doing our annual summary of legislation that impacts administrative attorneys in our next newsletter. So there's a lot of good stuff going on, and we'd really love to have you more involved. We're looking for new members of the section council. So if you're looking to take membership to the next level, we meet probably between 4 and 6 times a year, often by conference call, in person when we can. For the foreseeable future, it will likely be conference calls until things are safer. But would really just encourage you. So if you're interested, please feel free to reach out to me. My email address is kathy.grayson@carefirst.com. And we would just love to hear from you and get you more involved. So that's my shameless plug about what we've been up to this year. So I'm also charged on the agenda with sort of framing COVID's impact on our sector. I will confess, I am a less traditional attorney. I work in the insurance regulatory space. So for me, the impact has been going through the deluge of guidance coming from agencies and the governor, and to the extent the legislature is still meeting via work group to talk about this, and figuring out how all of the COVID impacts impact my client, which is CareFirst. And but I understand those of you that do have the courtroom practice where you're in OAH or you're doing litigation, going through the deluge of court closures and instructions has probably been a Herculean task. And wanted to give props to the MSBA because our section met a couple weeks ago and kind of unanimously agreed that you guys have done a phenomenal job of keeping the information coming, keeping it in one place, keeping it timely. So we're really grateful to have that as a resource to us. But with that, just wanted to open it up for questions. If there's anybody in our section that wants to speak up about challenges that they've encountered in this practice, or any questions we might have, since we have all these MSBA staff members in one place, it's a great opportunity for us as well to ask questions. So with that, I'll put that out there if anybody wants to speak up or type questions.
Hey, this is Peter. This is Peter Sheehan. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
So I have a question for the MSBA team, and I apologize because I'm sort of stepping out of the confines of the administrative law section, but I'm curious whether the MSBA has any working group that is coordinating with the courts about when jury trials will safely resume, and under what circumstances, what they will look like, and sort of the logistics of getting those underway if and when they get started.
Sure, I'm happy to respond to that. This is Shaoli. We have been communicating closely with the judiciary since the beginning of this. In fact, since March 16th, we've been sharing questions with them, and have seen what they have, been issuing in orders soon after. The latest information that we have and that's been publicly available is that jury trials would not start more than 6 weeks after the courts reopen, which puts us to mid to late July. And what we have been speaking with the judiciary about and what they've been working on is these work groups in the district and circuit court. And they have all provided recommendations to the chief judge by last Friday. And we should be getting word very soon about what the next steps are in regards to reopening jury trials and all of that information. And what we have heard from the judiciary, and what they've asked us to convey as well, is that it's a phased reopening. It will not just be the doors opening all at once, and that it may vary from jurisdiction to jurisdiction because different communities are facing very specific challenges. So a courthouse in Prince George's County, is a much different world than say a community on the Eastern Shore. So that's the update I have. And Richard, I don't know if you have anything else to add, or any comments about what's been going on the legislative side in terms of criminal cases restarting.
Actually, I do, Shelley. Thank you.
Thanks.
And thanks for the question. That was a large chunk of what came up in the Senate Judicial Proceedings briefing back on May 7th, which dealt pretty much with criminal matters. But they're just all sorts of linear little things that you don't think about until you sit down to say, okay, well, what happens when judges might ordinarily, when attorneys might approach the bench, or what happens, okay, how are you going to conduct voir dire? How do an attorney and a client converse quietly and privately during the course of a trial? How do you sequester a jury? And it's like Major League ballparks. They're not all laid out exactly the same. So you can't just have a one-size-fits-all solution for every circuit court, every district court. Some of the district courts are in multi-service centers. They're just all sorts of variables that play into this. So yes, we have been involved in that and continue and expect to continue to be.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that informed response.
Sure. And before we go on to the next issue, I'd love to pause and see if anyone else on the call has any other thoughts, whether it's someone from MSBA or section member. Kathy, there are some more comments here, and I see that you've also posted. Deborah Donahue has asked, how have people been dealing with deadline extensions? Are the courts and OAH applying them consistently, or is it on a case-by-case basis? And I know we'd love to hear from all of you, as I'm sure it has been challenging and different. And then I'm happy to give an update on our end. And Deborah, who has written in, I don't know if you have any particular experience that you might want to share as well. And what I can share from the MSBA perspective and from our discussions with the judiciary and what we've shared out is that while there has been some tolling of deadlines and extensions, that for a lot of things, what the court has said is that it is a case-by-case basis, and that in a lot of these cases, the administrative judge or a designee has been assigned to review any petitions, review any pleadings that are coming in, to look at that, And a lot of the counties have put in place new or sort of modified procedures to make sure that anything that's coming in is sent safely, whether it's to chambers or a specific clerk, and then going through that process. And we have heard from many members a spectrum of experiences when it comes to extensions. And what we've heard from the judiciary, the Maryland judiciary, and also, the federal judiciary, we've heard as well, is, as much as you can, try to work it out with your opposing counsel, with your colleagues. But if you're not able to do that, file something with the court, follow up and make sure that it's going to the right place and that there are eyes that are on that document so that you can get the response you need. We also have, Kathy, I know you've sent in a question here asking if you can speak to the autonomy of the courts in making decisions about reopening and how that will interact with executive orders from Governor Hogan or from county officials. And I'm going to let Richard take that question. We did just provide an update to the membership last Friday on this, and I'll let Richard talk about that.
Here is where this sort of brings us to the edge of one of the things that we feared, at least on the Maryland Chamber of Commerce work group on reopening and COVID-19 matters, is that you would have this hodgepodge of variations of what local jurisdictions are going to do. Now, it's not, as it turns out from what we saw, and we posted this on our website in the advocacy section, a snapshot of where the locals were postured in terms of whether they were going to follow the governor's phase 1 reopening or not. Basically, it's been Baltimore City, Baltimore County, Prince George's, and Montgomery that are the 4 big variants, along with Anne Arundel and Howard. But that's all going to change, and it doesn't necessarily change when the governor changes. So in other words, if the governor were to move to phase 2 and Montgomery County and Prince George's County felt that they were still in the throes of COVID spikes or ER surge beyond capacity, then we would see continued variation. But I know that the governor's office is doing great work in terms of working with the judiciary, and the judiciary is doing great work working back with them to try to keep this coordinated so that you don't have the confusion of something that looks like a stay-at-home order when people are getting summonses. So that's really been a little bit challenging. And what we were watching on Friday when the governor had announced on Wednesday, the reopening scheduled for Friday at 5 p.m., there was a great deal of concern because most people thought, well, okay, state edict trumps local edict. Well, in this case, that's not so. And that was especially provided for in the governor's executive order, just so that there would be no confusion. The problem is local jurisdictions don't have the same sort of platform to inform their residents and the people who operate businesses within their jurisdictions, to let them know that, hey, while the governor may have opened things up or relaxed some of the restrictions of the original order, those don't apply in our jurisdiction. So it's been a constant sort of struggle to keep people abreast of what's going on with that because there's just so much information coming from so many different sources. But we'll do our best to stay on top of that and keep the membership apprised.
And Richard, I've posted in the chat your blog from Friday. So I'd encourage everyone to just click on that link so it'll be open on your computer. And that has a lot of helpful information about the specifics of the governor's order and the language that gives that autonomy to the counties. And it also has a breakdown county by county of what's going on. And Richard, I understand that those links are updated pretty regularly, correct?
They are. There is, let's see, I had posted on Twitter yesterday. Our handle on there is MSBA legislation all run together. So it's at MSBA legislation. The governor's page has an updated page that's updated at 9 a.m. every day on where the locals stand on their posture relative to the governor's phase one. Another source that I would suggest staying on top of is the Maryland Association of Counties, popularly known as MACO. They have a great page for keeping people updated on matters such as those.
Thank you, Richard. And I have several questions and comments that have been posted here that I'd like to acknowledge. So Deborah posted about Baltimore City Circuit Court. She said seems to be proceeding pretty much as usual. With electronic filing, it also seems to be proceeding as usual. And what we have seen is that for the non-MDEC counties, that they have put in place some modified procedures to allow for electronic or virtual filing. And I expect that we will hear more from those jurisdictions as things reopen and as we continue with this. Kathy's also asked about any insights on how the court will handle prioritizing or rescheduling those cases that have been postponed. And that is at the top of everyone's mind. You know, when will my case be heard? What can I expect? What can I tell my clients? And, you know, I think what I would say and what the judiciary has asked us to express to the community is that they have these established work groups. They're open to any and all information and suggestions, which we have been doing and sharing everything that you all have been sending us. And, you know, courts are used to working on working on closures. They're not used to reopening and thinking through all of these steps. So, you know, they're very thankful for everything that's been coming in, and that is a huge priority for them. And that is something that we expect Judge Barbera will be discussing now as she's received that information from the groups. And Richard, there's another question from Kathy here as well, asking if the MSBA is involved in the Department of Commerce, Secretary Schultz's work group on industry reopening.
That's a good question. And Kathy, this is actually one of our sort of minor disappointments. That group was put together very, very, very quickly. And one of the things we noticed right away when we saw the initial draft of who was going to be involved on the professional and financial services groups, there was no representation of the legal profession at all. And we sort of tried to work a back channel through contacts that we had on the professional services group. But in terms of formal representation on that group, we wrote to Secretary Schultz about that. And her response was that this is going to be an ongoing thing. So we hope to sort of weave in representation, and we hope it'll be from the MSBA, and we believe that it will be. But that sort of jumped out at us right away. In fact, this was also brought up in the Chamber of Commerce work group, because I believe the concern there was that there wasn't a great deal of representation of small businesses. If you saw either the Baltimore or Washington business journals, or I believe it was also published, the composition of the groups in the Daily Record, they were pretty large entities for the most part that were represented on the varied work groups.
Richard, can you talk about what the Chamber of Commerce is planning? I know you talked about this a little bit earlier, but what are the next steps there in terms of any subgroups from the COVID work group?
Well, there are a number of fronts that we're still fighting on. One dealt with the Paycheck Protection Program, which initially excluded 501c6 organizations, which include a fair number of nonprofits in our sector, in our world, well, including us, but that wasn't the sole reason. Part of the big concern with the chamber is basically keeping in touch, and we've done a fairly good job of having access to Maryland congressional representation. The problem is that Congress is still grappling with how to meet, when to meet, what to meet on, and there's a lot of hurry up and wait, just like dealing with the Maryland General Assembly, where you sort of sit around and wait for something to happen, and then it all happens very, very suddenly. So it's just a matter of being prepared to leap into action once the chambers convene, and try to get our wants and needs addressed.
Thanks, Richard. And Kathy, I know that you asked about, I know you posed a few questions here as well. Is there anyone on the call who'd like to share their experience, or kind of what's at the top of your mind as we consider reopening, and what are some issues that you're hoping will be addressed by the court? I think that would be helpful. And the judiciary has specifically asked for that. So I am taking the opportunity in these chats to make sure that I'm asking that and that I'm conveying that. So please do let us know. And this is a great opportunity for that. I know case priority is big. And as Richard had also talked about, thinking about ways to make what we take for granted in the everyday practice of law, such as, having a sidebar and conferring with your client, handing things into evidence and all of that. Those are certainly steps that they're thinking through. And a lot of equipment has been ordered, and they really are trying to prepare the courthouses. Angela, is there anything in the chat that I've missed here? I just want to make sure I'm addressing everyone.
Yep, you got it all, Shally.
Great. One of the other things that I just wanted to make sure that everybody knew is, while we have been providing all of this content, and we've had so many of you that have reached out to us with great ideas for these webinars and for blogs and things like that, we still want that to continue. We don't want that to end. And we think that as the courts reopen in the next couple of weeks, that need is going to be even greater. So if there are issues that you think you'd like to hear about, even if nobody has all the answers right now, but if you'd like to have a conversation about it, if you'd like to have a speaker address something that's very important right now, please do let us know, because we really are working hard to make sure that content is available. And as people start having their schedules increase, we still want that information to be on demand for you and timely. Oh, thank you, Deborah. Nice to hear that the updates have been helpful. I wanted to share, and maybe Richard can also share, kind of what sort of content we are thinking of producing now as we think about reopening.
At the moment, the MSBA, one of the things Shally and I talked about earlier, is trying to work as a clearinghouse for our members, because there are certain areas where we know there's a lot of interest. And despite the fact that, people think that just because someone's working from home that they have lots of time to look around and find all the information they need, we've come to find that there's such a deluge of information on so many topics that we try to work as the clearinghouse for the legal community. And one of the things we're working on at the moment is a simple and authoritative guide to reopening businesses based on the information we know now in terms of guidance from the federal government, Governor Hogan. There are some nonprofit and think tank groups like the American Enterprise Institute, the Bloomberg School of Public Health has got a good guide. There have been OSHA and CDC resources that have been very helpful. So we're trying to sort of put together a simple and concise guide that doesn't need to have, well, we're going to try to supplement this on a regular basis, but something that we don't have to worry about being stale or misleading in a week. So that's the project that's sort of right in front of us at the moment.
Thank you, Richard. And if there are resources that you come across, we've been really thankful to those of you that have forwarded things to us and said, please share widely. That's really what we're here for as well, is to make sure that during this time where we all have 100 things going on, that we can assist and really, really help out with that. I will say that we've had a couple of webinars on the loan programs, and Glenn Frost and his team have done a wonderful job with that. And we just had some new guidance that came out on Friday And we are planning on putting together another webinar with updates on forgiveness guidelines. So we'll communicate that out widely to all of you. And then the sort of another area that I wanted to just make sure that we covered is, you know, as you have been going through and looking at these resources, you know, Richard has said what our focus is and what we're hoping to provide in the upcoming weeks, but really to understand from you and get some feedback about what has been most helpful and what may be the gaps. That would help us a lot too, because we want to be as current and useful as we can be. And I think that, as we stated at the beginning of this call, we are involved in a lot of different areas and making sure that we're connecting to a lot of community leaders and groups. But we just want to make sure that we're doing all we can and all that you need. So really, this is an opportunity. If you can't think of anything now, just reach out to us afterwards, just so that we can make sure we're doing what we can. I'll also share that one of the questions was asking about sort of reopening considerations and what we're hearing from the judiciary and from other courts. And what we've seen, and as I said earlier, is that the judiciary has communicated that you know, they will provide guidance. They're working hard. But I wanted to also acknowledge the local bars and the specialty bars that have worked really closely with administrative judges in their own counties to put together a number of town halls. So we've seen them in Carroll County, Howard County, Baltimore City and County, and many others, Prince George's County upcoming. And those have also been a wonderful opportunity if you can tune in. Angela has been tracking those, and most of those are posted on our MSBA calendar. So if you click through and you see town hall for a certain county, if you click on it, it'll bring up the information for attending. And in our e-weeklies that we've been providing, there are summaries for the ones that we've been able to attend. And I think it's very helpful for many of you who may practice in multiple jurisdictions and just trying to keep track of everything. A quick way to get a summary from, you know, the administrative judge and or the clerk in that court, and then to understand what are some of the big issues that practitioners and the public are thinking in those areas. So it's another great way to stay connected. And I really just wanted to acknowledge those judges and those bar associations for bringing everyone together in a very helpful and informative way. And my understanding is that those have been very successful. And a lot of the administrative judges have indicated that they'd be open to, you know, having another one, especially as the reopening is scheduled for early June. So I don't see any other questions, but I certainly want to give this group time if anyone else has any closing thoughts. What I'll close with is that we really would like to make this coffee talk ongoing, if that's helpful to this section. We've also done some talks where we've combined sections together, and that's been really interesting, and a lot of good information shared amongst the members. So we'll be happy to work with Kathy and anyone else who'd like to put that together. And in some of the sections, such as consumer bankruptcy, we were able to bring in a trustee during the coffee chat. And, you know, he just stayed on the phone and answered questions until people were done. And it was a great experience. So we're also happy to use this time and this forum for that, if that's helpful to this group. Richard, do you have anything else? Oh, go ahead.
Barbara Powell speaking. Can I just make a quick comment?
Please go ahead.
The judges of the various benches are meeting to come up with a plan for administrative appeals that will be coming up for settlement courts, for example, and there will be a plan in place. So, because a lot of cases, we get a lot of administrative appeals in settlement court, which we hope to settle. But just to let you know, we really are working on that so they won't be delayed forever.
That's great to hear. Do you have a timeline for that, or is that, you know, to be determined based on the group getting together?
I think it's going to be determined on a county by county basis. I know I have a phone conference this morning at 11:30 for the Baltimore County Settlement Court judges, and we're trying to figure out an exact plan for when we're allowed to reopen, how that's going to look and how it will be accomplished. Some of it will be done on Skype for Business. I know that. So the lawyers won't even have to come in.
Great. No, thank you for that really helpful update. And I know, Skype for Business is what's been preferred. Different counties are using different platforms, but that's really good to hear that there's movement there.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Okay, well, I think that's that I've acknowledged everyone, and I see people are muted, but feel free to say goodbye or just post in the chat, and we will continue to share updates and information. And please reach out to us if we can do anything at all. Thank you all.
Thanks so much.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.